opinions expressed in the following are those of its participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers and the Six Talk Podcast Network. Also, the following contains mature material and mild language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
And the podcast begins for this Saturday night, December 18th, 2021, presented by Anime North. This is episode 56 of the Anime Roundtable Canada. Good evening from 6 Points, 10 minutes south of the Anime North compound in the Toronto West End. Mike Nicolas with you, joined online by James Austin, Kevin Ng, and Mohamed Sharmarke. Jeff Gregg has decided to be part of the audience tonight and will not be joining us. Hope you're enjoying this, Jeff. A quick reminder, you can reach out and strangle us. AnimeRoundtable@gmail.com is our email address. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Roundtable. AnimeRoundtable.com is our website with show notes and past episodes. And a reminder now on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Anime Roundtable, and we're on YouTube as well. More stuff coming soon there.
I don't know, Mike. I don't want to be strangled. You can keep your strangling fetish to yourself.
Makes us worried about our virtual reality future and stuff like that, or those virtual games, right?
You know,
the PlayStation and that.
All I know about it at this point is our virtual reality could continue just a little bit longer. More on that in a few seconds.
It's scary enough with Resident Evil 7.
That too.
Oh, that is a fun game to play in VR.
That was
I gotta say.
the funnest one, because all the other ones I've tried feel more concept-like when I tried it for PlayStation and other areas as well. So.
Has anyone checked out the new movie?
Oh, yeah, you checked it out a couple times, right?
Oh no, I'm talking about Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil movie that came out.
Oh, that one, yeah.
It's actually pretty good, man. You know.
So, did you like the camp? Mo, because they said it was camp in a good way, because they were obviously trying to go after similar to what the games felt like.
Oh, really?
Right?
It's like a shot. It's like a shot for shot, set in the 90s. A lot of 90s stuff. I liked it.
I always feel like those Resident Evil movies are kind of like hit and miss. Like you're watching it because you just want to be entertained.
Oh, 100%. But I like those don't really count as Resident Evil movies. They're more like, inspired by Resident Evil. This is just like, hey, let's just take the plot of Resident Evil 1 and 2 and make a movie out of it. And that's all it is.
Yeah, like they were going after the video games and the minutia of it. And I think Victor Lucas from Electric Playground had some good words on stuff like that. That it wasn't like this is a big blockbuster or anything like that. It's like, this is a cheesy movie. You're going to sit down. You're going to have some popcorn. If you like the games, you'll enjoy it, and sort of thing. You know what I mean? So.
It's one of those put your brain away type things.
And it's not like the CGI or any of the effects or stuff like that is going to blow your brains out or anything like that. Like, I think they said they had them for certain things, I guess the liquors and I guess the dogs and stuff like that, and probably some of the zombies and the iconic zombie turning scene and a few other things. The real question, though, is this, Mo. Was there a Jill sandwich in the movie?
A Jill sandwich?
That's funny.
What does that even mean?
James?
Wow, that's
just a really long explanation.
That makes me think of Glass Reflection, where he made a thing, like a reference to something way back, and then he's like, wow, my audience was so confused about what was going on because they're so much younger now. And that was anime cabbage. If I said anime cabbage, do you think you know what I mean? And he said about anime cabbage can't look bad since the mid-2000s or something like that. So it was that one mid-2000s anime. Now I forget the name of it, but I remember it was like a green ball, and it was the TV version, and they're cutting it, and it looks nothing like a cabbage.
Now this is way over my head.
But yeah, Jill Sandwich was Jill Valentine, Resident Evil 1, and I think she was going to be crushed, and I think Barry saved her, and she's like, oh my god, or no, it was Barry himself that said you almost became a Jill sandwich. So it just became a thing after that.
Okay, there's the reference. Okay. We can talk more video games and other stuff a bit later. James, first appearance since you missed out on episode 55. You had a couple other things to do. You've heard the episode, right?
Correct.
Any thoughts? Or is there really not much else to add to it?
Like for Cowboy Bebop and for the update on Totally Not Mark's channel, I'd say it was where I was at too for a lot of those things, and I think we've closed the circle on those. I saw that Kevin made some comments. I think it wasn't our live appearance, but it was, I guess, the space heater we might have done before that, and we had talked about some of the announcements. And yeah, Tokyo Revengers was kind of an interesting thing how it played out, to say the least. But I'm not surprised on that one, Kevin. And I think some of it is probably might be what some on those discords were thinking in on social media. But I think some of it too is the length of that series is still pretty lengthy. It's almost Space Brothers level, so that's why I think they went digital first. And even with the rise in popularity, still, if they're asking for more, it's going to be tough to get that asking thing. And I think if someone wants to take a run at it, it's like, sure, go for it. And Seven Seas has been game to go after stuff from Kodansha we've seen recently and in the past. And as well, they've went to Shueisha and stuff like that to get some of their series and some of the stuff they don't usually do. And some of them I know have been on Ghost ship for some of the Shueisha stuff. That's more, I guess, raunchy in a way.
I'll say that Tokyo Revengers is not quite Space Brothers length. It's 24 volumes and counting. It's getting longer, yes. I'd say it's 24 volumes and counting. So I looked it up a little bit today. So Kodansha Comics USA licensed Tokyo Revengers for digital release back in 2018.
So how many was it back then? That's the question, I guess.
I believe Tokyo Revengers debuted in 2015, if my memory is correct. So, but it is in Weekly Shonen magazine, so it definitely would have probably been like in the it would have probably been like 12, maybe 12, 13 volumes by that point in Japan, give or take.
So yeah, I guess you're right. It would be less than, say, for example, what Space Brothers was at, because that was in the early 20s, I think, or just at around volume 20.
But yeah, basically, it's like how Bandai was. I know I said this already in the last episode, but the cost of the license back then versus the cost of the license now was too different and too expensive for them to justify the cost, is what I suspect.
And the other thing is, yeah, with the omnibus, it's not always a guarantee that they'll get caught up in stuff like that. It's like it has to be a home run almost that they're going to go and do it, like we saw with example Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
But the other thing I forgot to mention, remember when we were looking at the New York anime convention, and it was funny, Kodansha actually was the one, and it was buried under some of their announcements, but they announced some box sets. It's always interesting to see the box sets, and for the two they announced, it's kind of nice to see some offbeat box sets for the holidays. So it's like, I guess, holiday 2022, they're going to do a box set of Wodokoi and Sweat and Soap. And both of those, like Sweat and Soap's going to finish up next month, and then Wodokoi is going to finish end of May, but they're going to then have box sets for those in December, I guess, of next year, which is kind of a nice thing for someone to check out, like for a different genre, so to speak. Because usually you think of them more for Shonen Jump and that, right? Like more popular stuff.
Well, I was thinking that for Wodokoi. Remember, I was a fan of that, so
I imagine Wodokoi does very well for them because that series is very well stocked at the different Indigos that I've frequented recently.
Yeah, well, then I'll order the box and somehow at Indigo, and then somewhere along the line it gets canceled on me. Not that I'm bitter.
Didn't
Well,
that get
as they say,
reinstated though?
That's another. It's a long story.
all I can say, Mike, is when that happens with Indigo, you just got to go back to customer service because sometimes the algorithm there just does weird things where it'll cancel something and it's like it just came into stock and you're like, "Can you help me out?" And usually they'll help you out for the original price.
Actually, that's true. They said, and they said they will. Anyway, okay. Since we've talked at length about Kodansha over the last couple minutes, is there anything else to add? First of all,
They did announce re-releases of Noise by Tsutomu Nihei, as well as I think they did relicense No Longer Human, or they. So those have been out of print for quite a while too, especially Noise. So it's nice to see those come back in print.
I saw a few digital only ones they said are going to come out for physical, and one of them was older title and stuff like that. I think it was a horror manga or something like that, and I can't remember the name of it now, but that was supposedly coming later on. So it's good they're actually going back to some of their digital back catalog.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's change the order up since we've talked at length about Kodansha already, and I need a tie-in anyway. So we'll get to the other stuff a bit later on, or the next thing was
Excellent,
original.
excellent segue, Mike.
You know where I'm going?
I don't know.
You know?
Are we going to talk about Love Hina for the next hour or something?
I hope not the next hour, and it's more specific, of course. Not necessarily Love Hina itself, but its author. And yeah, there's the Kodansha tie-in. Ken Akamatsu made a little bit of news earlier this week. Aims to run for the upper house of the Japanese Diet, so he's looking to get into politics, aiming to run
counselors, huh?
The upper house is known as the House of Counselors of the Japanese Diet. He'll run as a member of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, apparently in elections to happen next summer. And his goal, according to reports, at least Anime News Network, the way they term it, his goal in running for Japan's legislature is to protect freedom of expression. Election chairman Toshiaki Endo confirmed Akamatsu's intention to run, which was 9 days ago, December 9th, and the party is currently in the selection process. This was reported by Kyoto News, and we'll probably hear more about that in the coming week.
So that's kind of interesting. So I'm guessing he is a candidate for them, and I'm not sure if he actually, if in the parlance of parliamentary democracy in ours too, it's like if he actually has a riding to run in yet or not. That's, I guess, a question mark there. And I'm not sure if they're proportional in Japan as well, because you know how some proportional ones, I guess they can run but not be in a riding and stuff like that. If
there's a hybrid system for the lower house, I remember back in October there was a hybrid system in place. So I think there were a set number of seats in various ridings or whatever it was, and then the remaining seats would be filled based on proportional representation, popular vote. So ultimately, the numbers added up for the LDP. They maintained power in the lower house. We'll see what happens here.
I guess the interesting thing is, given Ken Akamatsu's history and his discussion on censorship and freedom of expression, I guess, in Japanese pop culture and manga especially and stuff like that, that I guess it's not too far reaching to think he would obviously maybe throw his hand in the ring, maybe thinking that he can maybe make some positive change and stuff like that. And I think you said, Mike, there was another LDP member that they've been doing the drum beats again on this about soft power and about certain things in his area, so maybe that's a part of it to bring him in. Whether he's effective is another thing altogether, because in Japanese politics he's a young guy and they're probably just going to say, okay, you better be voting the way we want you to vote.
a set system, a patriarchal, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Unless
it
you're
isn't just,
hoping to be prime minister in, 30 years or something like that?
well, keep in
Or
mind,
become a minister in 30 years, and maybe you might have a chance at having your pet project listened to.
well, keep in mind the age difference. Ken Akamatsu is what?
50 something.
50 something,
Yeah, I
early
was going to say.
50s, Fumio Kishida. And that's the LDP member I was referring to, by the way. Because when he was elected, that's the prime minister. When he was elected, he stated he would try to help out the soft power industries in Japan, i.e., anime and manga, and other pop culture stuff. So this is an interesting development in light of at least what's been highlighted to anime fans concerning the new prime minister.
And they'll have,
Kishida, for references, in his early to mid 60s, if my math is right here.
which is
Anyway,
probably young for a Japanese prime minister,
yeah,
as
he's
we said, but
64.
it'll
Yeah.
be nice at least if Akamatsu does go the full way and somehow is elected and stuff like that. It's just, as we say, another voice that maybe could help them shed light and stuff like that on certain issues and stuff like that. But you never know how it's going to play out because you have to actually run the full gamut of a majority to get those changes through. And then, as we know through committees and that, things can change in a hurry, right?
Mm-hmm. So where do we go? What do we say about Akamatsu here? Because as you mentioned, James, he's been so active on various fronts, censorship. I mean, last year he had that talk about foreign language dubs and race.
Oh boy, did he!
May have rattled a few people on that one.
And I think it came from a Japanese centric thought process and stuff like that, whether we agree with it or not, unfortunately. And in regards to freedom of expression, stuff like that, I think some of that was in relation to the illicit market, obviously, for manga like scans and stuff like that online. Because as we were talking about, Mike, remember that he started in 2008 his own service like J Comi Digital Manga, where he put some of his manga up and some others as he went along. And I guess by 2010 they had a beta test and they had 14 volumes of Love Hina on that, and supposedly that was with some advertising and no DRM, which is kind of crazy to think. And so I'm not sure how the viability and business model turned out on that because I guess we never heard anything. And I know we talked about it in version one. So I'm intrigued to see how that played out. And I know we were looking it up in 2011. They said they did a foreign language and an English language beta test, but I can't remember how that turned out for that. But probably they wouldn't be doing anything right now because obviously we have different services now that are doing streaming digital manga and stuff like that.
Yeah, JComi's apparently still around. It's known under another name now, Manga Z or Manga Toshokan Z.
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah, if it's more Japanese oriented and stuff like that because probably, as we know, other people took up the mantle for English language, and we know about Shueisha and Shugakukan and Jump and stuff like that, how they've started to now go full force with their push in legal digital distribution of manga and stuff like that in all languages.
Yeah, it's just this was the JComi project just sounded interesting at it from the outset because it focused on stuff that was long out of print, doujinji, and going DRM, which was at the time kind of interesting. I'll stop sort of saying revolutionary, but it was an interesting point. And in the process, since it was all out of print stuff, it didn't pose that type of threat to established publishers. So the wiki would always refer to it as not necessarily in competition with. How much has changed in the decades since, especially since there really isn't an English equivalent. It's unknown to at least non-Japanese speakers. At least at the very least, I can't say I'd know much more. And you two, you and James and Kevin would probably have a better sense of it. And doesn't sound like you would either of you would totally know either.
Yeah, like we wouldn't know too much, but the playing field over a decade has changed so much because it's kind of similar to anime streaming and stuff like that when it was kind of in its infancy back then, and now it's become into the powerhouse and stuff like that. But then it's not like it squishes piracy out entirely and stuff like that because some
Well,
people are just,
that's sort of like going after COVID at this stage. It's kind of an impossible thing.
as Kevin was saying, I know he's like, you have these crazy people that are supposedly quote unquote trying to beat the actual real releases by translating it before and other things like that, which is kind of nuts. And I'm sure they'll be having those discussions with Ken Akamatsu when they talk about, because I'm sure he would have some interesting insights onto copyright and onto piracy and stuff like that. So I'm sure that encompasses freedom of expression and stuff like that too.
As I said, he's just so charged on these type of issues. So, guy's intelligent. Comes across as a pretty intelligent guy. It's just I think about him and then think about his works and how it's evolved. I mean I only really know Love Hina and a little bit of Negima. And AI Love You. But I'm not familiar with his most recent work.
You forgot Itsudate My Santa there, Mike. The Christmas
Okay.
Well,
anime that we all deserve.
it's forgotten for a reason.
Anyway, but no, he also, remember, he kept on doing Negumi, which is kind of funny because he had the spin-off UQ holder as well. So he's still been doing a lot of different things over the years,
Well,
I know.
UQ Older is now actually considered a sequel to Nejima now.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm off base. Wow, that shows you how long it's been.
Itsudate My Santa. Oh,
I still need to read
you're
UQ Older, but it's getting pretty long now.
Well, a
How
bunch of
many? Well, it finished, right?
no, it's still the manga's still going on. I think
So
like
it's still going?
the anime was only a season, I think, and it kind of just petered out.
Okay, I thought it was about to end. But okay. I mean, as I said, I never.
No,
That's the
actually,
one.
no, you're right. It did end.
Oh, it did? I thought it did. I thought it was set to end anyway.
No, it switched over from shonen to something else, right?
No, it's ending. It's ending in February because back in the summer there was a news article saying how uh, it'll end in 9 chapters, but because it's monthly, so it'll mean it'll end. It's imminently going to end, and hopefully
Okay.
it's not going to end like the original Negima did, where it kind of just ended on a cliffhanger of sorts. But I know there were some circumstances behind why he had to cut off serialization at that time.
Anything you? What do you remember of it?
I think it was actually related to some of the like stuff we're talking about now when it comes to like distribution. I don't know. I have to look it up.
Hey,
Yeah,
it might be worth. Yeah, the news is fresh, and I admit I didn't really do too much background on this one. Well, I can't say I do background on most things. This one is intriguing, to say the least. So I want to learn a little bit more about the stuff he has done as a bit of an advocate for the industry.
and I guess it's kind of the thing that you could probably count on one hand, probably, how many manga creators decide, hey, I think I'm going to run for politics or something like that. But if there was one you would think would do it, it probably would be Ken Akamatsu and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah,
It'd be
that's the thing. He over time, it's just the way he's presented himself and talked about things. Yeah, maybe there was a certain inevitability about this piece of news.
And yeah, he'll probably look at many different things related to soft power, and as you said, they're looking at that again. He would be a good fit for that, and he talks about freedom of expression and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out because, as we've talked about, some of them definitely want that, but then how are they going to go about that? Are they going to cloud over or put the curtain behind the stuff they don't want the rest of the world to see? And we've seen that not just in manga and anime, but in other places and stuff like that, where they're like, okay, we'd rather you guys not go to these host clubs, whether female or male and stuff like that, where they don't allow foreigners or certain other parts of Japanese society, right? So
It's a tough one. We this is like one of those, long running discussions, right? It's just another angle. So, and well, first of all, just reading that he intends to run, I don't think he's received a full nomination yet. At least that's what I'm reading, looking at this article.
Like that's what it sounds like, that he's has the blessing, I guess, of the LDP. It's a question of does he have a seat, and as we said, is it in an actual riding or is it in a proportional type of situation?
Yeah. Well, it isn't just that. It's just it sounds like there's still a lot to go before we actually see his name on the ballot.
And the other thing is, as well, you never know with these things with politics where they say they do the vetting and stuff like that, and somehow a politician gets through the net, so to speak, and then they find out their dirty laundry and they're like, cut the cord, so to speak. We've seen it too many times, right, in the last election.
We saw it, quite a bit here.
Yeah.
Happens, I'm sure, all the time in the States.
Oh, it's like a rite of passage for politicians, right?
Yeah. Just don't forget, clear out the skeletons, folks.
Yeah, well, all I can say is if they've read all of Akamatsu's manga and they're fine with that, then I guess I'll be okay.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they haven't, and then, it might become a thing.
They'll finally get around to My Santa, and then it's like, I'm not sure.
I think I found it.
Where do you look? Found what?
Let's see.
His
exclusive contract with Kodansha had come to an end, culminating with Akamatsu Sensei having all of his manga shipped from Kodansha to his home. He was also, let's see. Another thing that occupied most of Ken's time, at least on Twitter, is his fight against publishers, which including Kodansha, in trying to impose a new law by creating neighboring copyright for people who are not the creator but has a hand in helping the creation of the work. Gets automatic rights, meaning that editors, researchers, printers, or plain speaking, a power grab by the publishers to take the rights away from the author.
Where was this mentioned?
This is in the Astro Nerd Boy blog.
Okay. Well,
I've seen his name around on like a couple of forums, so I do recognize the writer.
I mean, send the link, okay? I'm curious. I'm curious to read that through. But that adds to another layer of that discussion about how sometimes fandom is quite okay to take the rights away from a creator, if only because they want the direction of an intellectual property they created to go somewhere else or continue, if that wasn't the necessarily the intention of the creator, right? Which is a very, very, I've said I've said in the past that sounds like a very dickish thing to want, but it sounds like there's some possibilities that it could happen. There could be instances where that could happen, but maybe that's another discussion altogether. As I said, Ken Akamatsu running in politics. How many manga creators can really say that? Or maybe any creators? Can you think of such a person anywhere else in the world? Pretty sure somebody could. Okay.
I was thinking back to Jesse Ventura. Remember when he became Minnesota governor? And that's I don't know why that's coming to mind, but just in a pop culture sense.
George Clooney, of course, is notorious for being very politically active too, and I think his father Nick ran for office in some form. But I don't know. It's all blurry right now. And frankly, I'd have to look that one up. Thanks for the link, Kevin. Okay, but interesting story. Let's see where it goes for him. I'm sure we'll hear more as to whether or not he ends up on the ballot. And then if he ends up on the ballot, how he ends up doing next summer. And let's revisit some of the other stuff concerning Akamatsu and his beliefs, because those are part of other angles on topics we've talked about throughout the pandemic series. Which means I found another segue, Mo. So from there, let's talk about the continuation of the pandemic series, because frankly speaking, it's going to continue as we do a COVID update. Don't know how it is in your part of the world, folks, but yeah, Omicron is taking hold pretty nicely.
I believe it's pronounced Unicron.
Are you purposely trying to piss Jeff off?
He's not here, for starters, right?
Are you gonna call Jeff there, Mo, just to leave that message and see what he sends back?
Next episode, Jeff. Next episode.
Where we have at least one more before the end of 2021.
And then we talked about, Mike, of course, Anime NYC, and supposedly the fella from Minnesota is being very helpful, so that's going to be a big one in them tracking and seeing how this is going to spread. So that's kind of a
I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of all the late night shows making jokes about this guy. Like, the dude just went to a convention, man. Leave him alone.
He seems to be at least he's stepped forward and is not hiding. That's
I mean, he's fully vaxxed. He's cooperating. He's the ideal citizen. He went to a convention and you guys are shitting on him. Come on.
Anyway, on the topic of infections, and now let's go into the numbers. The numbers just skyrocketed, at least in Ontario over the last week, and by all accounts, that's consistent with a lot of other places. So, as mentioned, everything got four figures early in the week. We got over 2,000 in the middle of the week. And then over the last 2 days, number of positive tests in Ontario have consistently gotten over 3K. Keep those donations coming, folks. So we're over 3,000 cases, and no sense that it's going to get any better. It's probably going to go up quite a bit. So there's been a lot, and a lot of those are breakthrough cases. But obviously, when you hear these numbers, and if Jeff was here, he'll probably stress this point again, there's always more to the numbers. Always look at, okay, how many are in hospital, how many are in ICU, how many are dying here. And they're not that bad. But I think there's this feeling that we might be being lulled into a false sense of security over it because of that. But at least here in Ontario, there seems to be a take no chances attitude, or at least we're starting to come to that. Capacity limits in most public spaces have been brought back. It's culminated in something like 50% capacities basically across the board, including large sporting events. As we're taping this, the Toronto Raptors were able to handle the shorthanded Golden State Warriors. Frankly, both of them were shorthanded in many different ways. And they played to a 50% house. So I think that's just over 9,000, somewhere between 9 and 10,000.
It's over 9,000!
And then the superfan, remember,
he's
games
been
ago
away.
couldn't even attend because he happened to be at Masai Ujiri's Giants of Africa thing, and
that
so
was
he
out
took
of
the streets. It's kind of crazy how that happens. But given your update, it's as you said, Mike, not surprising. Some of it is the take no chances because remember it's the holiday season, so people would become more lax. They would start mingling with different people, and it's the transmissibility and stuff like that. So that's where the big factor comes in, and then the variant. So those two factors mean we have to take a more serious approach. And then I'm sure, as you were probably going to allude to in future, we're now all going to fight for boosters, it seems.
Yeah, and on top of that, the cohort for third shots, the booster shots, will fully open up for people under 18 this coming Monday.
Over
No,
18.
over 18.
Or,
Over
yeah,
18.
sorry,
It was
18.
the under, what's it?
The unders,
13
the
or
under,
whatever, they started to
yeah,
get their
that's
first
what I said.
shots for the
Yes.
younger kids.
And that's what I meant to say. But it's basically with the caveat that anybody who will schedule for that third shot would have had to have their second shot 6 months before. 6 months is the time frame. So I think for speaking on a personal level, my 6 months will be coming up within the next couple days. I think for everybody else, it's still coming up pretty soon too.
Yeah. I'm January 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm somewhere in January as well.
Yeah.
I thought they said they were changing that a bit, that you could
To
do it a
3
bit
months.
sooner and stuff like that. So some people, because they're just coming up, they could still get it if they wanted a tiny bit earlier. As if you're in the
There's
same
a few
ballpark.
other caveats as to whether or not you got your initial shots were also AZ, right? But yeah, this is getting a little messy again and a little heady, and it's affecting everything. It sucks that we have to bring it up for a good couple minutes in this episode, but this is the world right now, so we have to at least acknowledge it. And really, all it does for this podcast is confirm that the pandemic series will continue well into 2022. So, at the very least, we hope we can at least entertain you in the middle of whatever stuff you enjoy watching.
I'm glad I didn't do any vacations recently that required an airplane. Because now you have all these new restrictions now.
Oh yeah,
Flying.
well, yeah, they brought back the quarantine and PCR requirements.
Yeah,
as well.
I
You
didn't
were
want to
stuck in
deal
a
with the
spot, right?
possibility of needing to do that kind of stuff. So I was thinking, nope, no vacation for me right now.
And I know, Mo, you've made a couple of border visits, and
I did. I will say I was pleasantly surprised when I got my randomly selected COVID test at the border. I was also pleasantly surprised that I was in a car with 4 people and only 2 of us got tests, because that's how testing works.
I was going to say, if you were in a plane and stuff like that, I've heard some people that have been on planes that not everyone is wearing their masks, probably as they should be, because you're basically in a metal tube with a lot of people for a certain number of hours sometimes, and you never know what's going to happen, right? So.
It's the same thing with movie theaters. It's like, 500 people in a packed IMAX screening, shoulder to shoulder.
So wasn't there a full house? Because I know they started to come forward, and then they kind of said, "Oh, we'll allow everyone to be in there if they are fully vaccinated and stuff like that, as long as the facility is under the 50%," which is kind of, I don't know, interesting.
No, people are always looking for workarounds anyway,
Mm.
and those are well publicized. Mohamed, answer this question for me.
Yes.
How many times have you seen Spider-Man?
Let's see. More than 0, less than infinity.
Could you reenact the movie?
All right. So what had happened was,
Wait. Some of us are actually interested in seeing it. They'll settle for something online. That could be what we're reduced to at a point.
I will say, the I don't know how, if you guys haven't seen the movie and you try to go in like spoiler free, I feel like that cat's gonna be out of the bag by the end of this weekend. I don't think there's any news organization that's gonna keep that spoilers intact for people much longer.
Just like Cowboy Bebop, and this is the first mention we've made of Cowboy Bebop this episode. Stay away from Twitter.
Yes, exactly, and YouTube sometimes too. It's actually funny, the number of people who were just straight up pirating the movie in the theater with their phones out. The number of like flashes I saw, it's just, like, come on, guys.
And they have those warnings at the beginning of the movie for that and for spoilers now.
People usually are like a little more, they don't do that, but like certain scenes will come up and they're like, oh, half the audience will whip out their phones thinking that it's just like a thing to do. I'm like, no, you're in a movie theater for crying out loud.
This
But
isn't the
Well, what is
live.
the
why
movie
would
theater
you want to
pointed at
rewatch
you?
it in such a small screen
Yeah,
and
exactly,
in like
exactly.
lower
But
Maybe they
quality?
all have iPhone 13s and have the best quality they can get.
Even
Gods.
then, oh,
I was thinking. You had me thinking of two scenes from various television shows. One was The Simpsons when Homer was telling one of his flashback stories about how he and Marge started dating, and he talks about coming out of seeing Empire Strikes Back and blowing to everybody in the line the "Luke, I'm your father" bit to everybody standing in line waiting to watch the movie. And then there's this episode of Seinfeld where Seinfeld didn't realize he was associating with somebody who liked to tape, be in the theater with a camcorder. How many are you old enough to remember those things? To try and tape a movie during a premiere. And apparently, at the time, it was quite an art form in the 90s.
well, yeah, I mean, camcorders were the size of briefcases, right?
Yeah, to be able to sneak it in and just get the framing right. Apparently, it was an art form back then. Anyway, but there's some thoughts, and yeah, something tells me it's about to get a little messy, and just in time for Christmas too.
Wow.
And and you think the panic buying would typically happen on December 24th? No, I think it started today because
So you're saying there's no more toilet paper, Mike? They've done it again.
yeah, that's a good question actually. But the thing is, stores are set to go 50% capacity beginning Sunday, I believe, in Ontario.
Yeah, that's why I figured even with the snow we got today, they probably still packed those stores, right?
Oh yeah. I was pretty much stayed in all day, but I seen the snow out my window.
Wow.
Okay,
Actually, before we leave though, Mike, I will say you might have heard Mo, but at least you know Cineplex won't be closing anytime soon. You heard they won their judgment against that UK movie theater
Cineworld,
company,
Cineworld,
yes.
yeah.
So on
Cineworld, that supposedly they said you got cold feet on the deal because of COVID. Just because of that, you can't go after them and stuff like that. So I guess they got a bit of a cushion of money, so to speak.
I was
It's
personally
crazy
looking.
world. I've never heard anything like that. So
I was personally looking forward to Cineworld taking over Cineplex pre-COVID because Cineworld has this pretty awesome unlimited movie deal. They're like in the UK and stuff, but yeah, that collapsed, and now we're just gonna be with Cineplex forever.
yeah, it would have been intriguing. And I know Cineworld had already made inroads in the US too, I think.
Yep.
what was it? Was there a link? Was there a link to AMC in all of this? That
I don't think so.
Yeah, I know.
okay. Yeah, that's another piece of interesting news to have come out over the last week, and obviously with Cineplex dabbling a little bit in some anime features. Yeah, not to say that's earth shattering, but
They were definitely doing stuff online with renting movies for their online thing. And then, of course, they were trying to do, remember before COVID, some of those, I guess, smaller scale event type places and stuff like that. I forget what they called them, but it's like you had bars, arcades, and I guess
Oh, like
viewing
Rec Room,
rooms and
right?
stuff.
like rec rooms or
I
not really
guess
rec
something
rooms.
like that.
I
But
think
I guess
they
kind
bought
of that
Palladium,
plan has
right?
been put in its place by COVID too, unfortunately.
Yeah, you had the rec rooms, you had Palladiums. Those were Cineplex run brands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they've updated their Scene program to Scene Plus.
Okay, what's the big difference
What's
there?
the difference? They added a plus.
Because apparently they're adding pluses to everything.
Oh man,
I was gonna say just
Paramount
like
Plus,
Paramount and Disney,
Apple
right?
TV Plus,
exactly.
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what Netflix Plus will look like. Okay.
That's with games, Mike.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, from as I said, we had to get a little somber and a little bit muted. And we kind of, I feel we have to for just a little bit longer this evening. So there has been some tragic news in the Japanese entertainment business. This isn't just anime, but it's very Japanese entertainment oriented. Sayaka Kanda, who to anime fans, she was in Sword Art Online. I know that one right away. Any others? Any other noteworthy anime titles that anyone can remember off the top of their head?
I think
For
she
me,
also did sing some songs too, right?
Yeah,
As a
she was.
part
Oh
of
yeah, she was in.
Trust Trick, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. And she was involved in some music with Macross, I believe.
Yeah, like
And
Danganronpa 3 I know was one, so and then some other anime and stuff like that. But I think Danganronpa actually that was the anime, not the game, so that's interesting.
hmm and probably more internationally, she's the Japanese voice of Anna in
Frozen.
Frozen.
Frozen, yeah, so
So Sayaka Kanda was found unconscious at a hotel in Sapporo and was declared dead in hospital not too long after. So she was 35 years old. Came from good pedigree. I think we don't anybody who keeps up with the Japanese entertainment world will recognize her parents. But this is suicide is being suspected here.
for me, she was Teresa from Space Battleship Yamato 2202.
You've mentioned being a big fan of that. So, I mean, she sounds like a very multi-talented woman. Like just reading her credits, reading the stuff she was
and I
doing.
believe I guess she was doing stage work too because her recent what she was working on now was My Fair Lady in Sapporo where she was and that was a stage musical.
Yeah, so music, film, TV, anime or animated films, stage. This is quite the resume I'm looking at here. So once again, she was 35 years old. Yeah, this is kind of one of those take your breath away type pieces of news. So, but we had to at least acknowledge it, considering all the other shit that's going on these days. This is just another to add to that pile, and it's a really shitty pile. Let's be honest. So Sayaka Kanda gone at age 35, and on that note, we do have a bit of a follow up here as well. We talked last year about Hana Kimura, the female pro wrestler who was on the popular Terrace House reality show that Netflix had, which was also on Fuji TV. There is a follow up to that, and obviously, if you remember the story, she took her own life back, I believe, in May last year, following some cyberbullying incidents after her appearances on Terrace House. The follow up is her mother has announced intentions to sue Fuji TV over over how she was handled on that show. As part of the case, she's trying to get any raw footage from the taping of Terrace House. To this point, the production companies, I don't know if it's necessarily Fuji themselves, but at least another production company, they have announced intentions to appeal that because they have been ordered to turn in any unedited footage, any unedited taping they had of it. Comes back to the narrative that the producers on purpose tried to make her look bad, because one of the key moments for Kimura was when she got really upset at another housemate over some incidences and the handling of certain parts of her belongings. And the person she apparently screamed at, or she did scream at, has apparently said some of this was staged. So they're trying to get to the bottom of this, and obviously Kyoko Kimura is looking for some compensation, since obviously she squarely blames everything that happened to her daughter on their handling. So there's the latest in that story. It's this when we talked about this a year ago. This was as the pandemic really started to take its grip, and we started to really see the scope of the issue that we were facing at the time. So this is kind of one of those reflective moments. And remember, it happened at the same week that Zach Berchi passed away as well. So it's a little bit sad that we had to bring up these two stories. For reference, it's also of note as well, this story has always been on the mind of pro wrestling fans. So I know that many of them have kept up with this. And it isn't just in Japan, but here in North America as well. So Kimura had a lot of fans here and a lot of support within the pro wrestling community. So there's little doubt they're showing that support for Kyoko Kimura as well, who, by the way, is a former pro wrestler in her own right. Hana just followed in her footsteps. So with having mentioned all of that, just maybe once in a while, maybe it's good that we do a public service as well. So if any listeners out there are in or know somebody who is in trouble in those type of forms, we encourage you to look for help. In Canada, the Canadian Suicide Prevention Line, 1-833-456-4566. In the U.S., the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Those are easy resources you can talk to with pros, or just seek out any form of help. Seek out a friend. Hey, if you're comfortable even just trying to talk to somebody and comfortable talking the stuff you like to talk about with us, great. But anything to help. So look for it, okay? All right, we're done with the depressing stuff, guys. Well, we did mention at the end of episode 55 last week, we would be keeping tabs on the Discotek presentation that would happen on Monday. What did they bill it as?
I guess it was something about
like a Christmas spectacular. I think
something like that, winter spectacular. But in the end, they kind of lined up what they're going to release, I guess, for the first quarter. So February, March, and April, and then they had some other announcements as well. And I guess that's why their February solicitations were delayed a bit, because they did have a few announcements there. And they also said what they found in the vault that Eiko was found in, because they've found a few things in that vault. They talked about Appleseed, which they mentioned before, and then they announced their first steelbook from a re-release they're going to do, because they have new materials of it, and it's quite the controversial one, so to speak.
Oh,
well,
the top cover looks so nice. Oh my god!
Well, it's the same thing, but I think it's gonna pop on the steelbook. I think.
Oh yeah, she looks so hot on that cover, even though it's such a trashy OVA series with
it's
an
kind of
amazingly
weird,
tagged
as
dub.
they said, because the first two episodes were before the bubble burst, and then it's like the third episode is after the bubble burst, so it's kind of like something happened. because they went off rails. Like, you watch the first 2 episodes, and then that third episode, it's like, wow.
Hmm.
And
Well,
it was
what,
even a wow for manga entertainment because they rewrote the English dub because it was that. But I think Discotek did right by and stuff like that, that they have stuff on the disc and stuff explaining what's going on. It's kind of like how you look at almost the godfather of manga, Tezuka, right? And how a lot of them do have some pages at the beginning of some of the manga saying that at this time, even though it is offensive now, right?
hmm. Well, what makes Angel Cop so controversial? Is it because of the redoing of the dub, or is there something else?
No,
Well,
Going
it's
it's
into
the
it?
just
third
it's
episode, and it's anti-Semitism. Let's just put it that way.
and
And
very
it's
violent and
Oh yeah, the one scene I
but
saw there, and I've never seen Angel Cop. I
yeah,
admit.
like you definitely had the '90s like violence and cyberpunk and all that other stuff, but it definitely was that third episode, and it just they go on this rant, and it definitely was. That's why they had to change it and stuff like that because it's clear anti-Semitism and stuff like that, but. But
Okay.
other than that, like they did show footage, and you can tell that it looks better there, Kevin. And I think it's something that it's worth probably the upgrade if you owned the old Blu-ray and stuff like that. And it was one of those things where they have to work with what they have sometimes, as Justin Zafakis said. So at that time, that was the best they had. And you never know till you find a new master, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And that's what happened with Aiko. So Aiko gave us Appleseed, Angel Cop. They said their prior, some others, and I think Robert Woodhead from Anime Ego probably found some stuff for himself in there too. Since I know he was the one that discovered and tipped them off. So you never know if there's some other treasure troves because some of them they just put it in a desk drawer and sometimes they don't properly file those things, right?
And they degrade.
Well, they don't degrade in this sense because they were kind of protected and stuff like that. But yeah, it's how it
Mm.
goes. But they had some other great stuff.
So okay, so what's of the announcements? What stuck out to you? Well, James, Kevin, Mo,
I'd
if you have
say
something to add.
between me and Kevin, I know probably Skullface bookseller Honda Sun, which they said they're going to release in March. That's going to be a fun one
Hmm.
on Blu-ray, and the other one that was on Crunchyroll that they decided to get, which I think is a nice light-hearted one, was Miss Vampire Who Lives in the Neighborhood. That's going to come out in February. They announced that one. That one's kind of fun, the Miss Vampire one, because it's vampire from Europe going to Japan because she loves manga and anime and all this stuff, and she's just basically a neat and just living her anime dream while getting blood and all that stuff through Amazon or online, so to speak.
Hmm.
But the other things were we found out more about Lupin the Third. So the funny thing they said, and we were talking about movies, right? And remember we had mentioned Lupin the Third Part One, that dub being in movie theaters in the States in October, along with 2 episodes of Part 6. Supposedly, in that screening, they had made mention that Discotek was going to release it, but no one mentioned it. And they said, why did no one mention this on social media? So it makes you wonder what was going on, or maybe someone was just being very nice. They thought they wanted them to announce at the right time. But supposedly, part one, 23 episodes, because it's the 50th anniversary of Lupin anime, so anime specifically. Um, TMS, I guess, decided because it's easy enough for 23 episodes to get the cast together for the English side and dub that. And so they'll release that next year, they said, probably in the spring. But if you want to watch it now, supposedly Sentai through High Dive said starting this Thursday, they're going to be releasing, I think, 2 episodes or 4 episodes. I'm not sure how many every Thursday of the new dub, and I'm guessing
Oh.
that's tied to them releasing part 6 as well. So I guess that'll be nice for some people. I watched the. Did you guys watch the first episode of the dub on TMS's YouTube channel when it
No, I
was
I
didn't.
on?
I admit I am having trouble keeping up these days.
Yeah, no, it was a good one to have. Richard Epcar did a nice opening and stuff like that. Then they had the part one dub, and it was a by the book, and it was fun hearing the '70s references because it was like a Formula One episode, so they were mentioning some Formula One stars from way back when. But the funnier thing about that series, part one, is Miyazaki and uh, his cohort, of course. Now it's terrible.
Takahata?
Takahata, yes, Takahata. They didn't come till later, remember, because I guess it wasn't doing good in the earnings. So they fired the original director, which you rarely hear about in Japanese anime, and so they went more family friendly, and they set that template that I guess went through the success. But the first few episodes, it's similar to Monkey Punch's manga, where it is like if Lupin's coming to shoot a gun, he's probably going to kill you. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like if someone dies, they dies. But the other interesting thing was the music. It's like it definitely gave that vibe of James Bond, like especially on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's the vibe it gave, and it kind of came to a head in my mind because the new James Bond movie has quite a bit of music that was from Her Majesty's Secret Service. So definitely has that vibe. The other thing on Lupin, they said they're going back to release a new Blu-ray of Episode Zero: First Contact, and they're going to dub that. And I think that'll be a great one for people to see later next year because
Zero
it's
reads like an origin story of some sort.
yeah, it's kind of a what if story of how the Lupin gang first met. And I think it's a good thing if someone wants to check out Lupin. It would probably be a good place to start and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
they
and
talked,
as I said, I don't watch it as much, so I wouldn't mind.
but they talked
But
about there was a lot of good stuff like Montcoli Knights. They talked about that. They finally found the dub masters for that, and they're on their way to them. So that was a good thing that they finally found through their searches. They talked about Tales of Fantasia, the animation on Blu-ray. They talked about not Japanese anime, but actual 90s cartoons. They're still on that because remember they released Mega Man and stuff
yeah,
like that. So big one for Jeff that I know he probably watched and probably loves. Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog on SD Blu-ray, which is coming in February. That'll
Just
be
in time.
and
just in time.
sexy Robotnik and stuff like that. Not your Jim Carrey Robotnik, as they say.
Honestly speaking, my takeaway from the Sonic release, from the Sonic announcement, check out those boxes, man. Check
And
out
that's
the
similar to what they
box.
did with Mega Man. Like they do that kind of faux Genesis, just like they did the faux NES for Mega Man, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
the
it's some great stuff.
not just
And
faux NES, it's faux Capcom NES.
yeah, and the other thing
I
is,
give them credit
as
for.
Brady said, they went and did some other extras for Sonic the Hedgehog Adventures because Show Factory had done a DVD, but I think their extras will be intriguing and stuff like that, the ones they got. And I think they got the pilot too, which is kind of interesting for that one.
Mhm.
The other thing was Street Sharks. So they got
Oh yeah,
Street
yeah. Street
Sharks,
Shark.
and I think there was
I mean, there's a
the
name I
Vin
forgot.
Diesel commercial too, right?
There's a name I completely forgot, but yeah.
Oh
Uh,
man, I can't see. And the crazy thing is, they were saying about joking about how good it looks, and they made mention of it when they were producing it. And when I seen the footage, I'm thinking to myself, "Holy crap! Yeah, it does look good." Because there was a lot of stuff back then that probably didn't look that great if we look back at them and stuff like that. But
well, yeah. It's one of those. Okay, what ages well and what doesn't, right?
But Street Sharks, yeah, SD Blu-ray, and that one kind of, I think that was like the thing, remember, where they were trying to play on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so everyone needed something like that. So even though Turtles was more 80s and stuff like that, they had different ones after, even later, because this was mid 90s for Street Sharks, but it's like dudes with tudes, and then you just see these crazy sharks running around, right?
Every time I hear Street Sharks, all I can think about is Biker Mice from Mars.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, if they're getting Street Sharks, might as well get Biker Mice from Mars because I think both of them were playing the same year time frame, from
Yeah,
what I
like
remember.
early 90s. Yeah, yeah.
They've opened up a can of worms in terms of what type of requests could happen now. Like now that they've really dived a little bit more into what these 90s cartoons. So that could be an inevitability. Or at the very least, it could be on the table.
And I think the SD Blu-ray, as they say, opens up the possibility to do more of those type of shows and things like that, because a lot of them probably don't have the materials to properly remaster them for Blu-ray and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a thing these days. That's a trend. And maybe it's just, the original sin of the way they were done in the first place, right?
But yeah, no, I know they continued to talk about some other things. They talked about City Hunter. They're going to finally finish off the last two TV series. So City Hunter 3 in March and then City Hunter 91 in April. And then I guess we're going to see how they do all those specials, because there's quite a few specials and movies to do with that. But with that came the thing that supposedly they have Cat's Eye Blu-ray. So that'll be a fun one to rebuy, even though I know Right Stuff did a great job with that DVD set. And I guess this is Justin's second time working on Cat's Eye, because remember, he worked on that, was it DVD on demand thing?
He mentioned this was like one of those things.
And then the last one, like there were a few others, but the last one that was kind of interesting was their last announcement too. I'm not sure if I would get it, but it's kind of intriguing, where it's this cute dinosaur adventurer. You are Imasu, and that trailer was kind of interesting. So I guess it's 2 theatrical films and mini TV episodes and stuff like that are all going to be on one Blu-ray. But I guess it's this little dinosaur is born, and then this big T-Rex dinosaur-like thing looks at him, and I guess was going to eat him. He's like, "Oh, you're my daddy," and then they go on wild adventures, I guess.
You are Umaso.
Yeah,
is the name.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was funny, not funny, but it was cute seeing like 3 or 4 people going, "Oh my god!"
People, yeah, you were
3 or 4 people who like knew what it was.
You were keeping up with the chat, right, Kevin?
Yeah, the chat was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Well, yeah,
Chat was fun.
Chat was fun to read. Most of the time, it usually is. Do you want to reserve a word for Yowamushi Pedal New Generation, Kevin? Because I know you're.
Yeah, I saw that was April too, right? And they were talking about that.
No real thoughts on Yowa Pedal season 3. It's just it's nice. I actually haven't read too much of it, to be honest, but I always just find it crazy how that series has just been going on for so long, and they did finally announce a season 5 as well. So
I think that was on Crunchyroll, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Because if it was, then I believe it's another one of those ones. So they've been able to get a few Crunchyroll things, whether it's Peru Crunchyroll themselves or just by themselves. So it's nice to see some of those kind of come to physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did we bring up Urusei Yatsura? I don't remember if we did.
We didn't bring it up.
Because
that's the last
it was kind of an update, wasn't it?
Ah.
And so for Urusei Yatsura, what they were saying that in spring 2022, movie 4 is going to come out. And so movie 1 is coming the end of this month. Movie 3 is coming out the end of January. And movie 2 is, which was done by Oshi, is already out by them on Blu-ray. And then movie 4, Love is Forever, to Blu-ray spring 2022. But all of the Urusei Yatsura movies are streaming on Crunchyroll. So if you want to watch them now, you can watch them there. And there are 6 movies, so they did get all 6. It's just a matter of scheduling things, right?
Yeah, and they finally are putting up on call nights too.
Yeah,
they finally found everything except for like 30 seconds of footage.
Just like what was it? Ninja Robots. And Ninja Robots was the one you were thinking of, Kevin, where they got 99.9%, and then they talked about
seconds, and they decided
to redub. And it was with Brady and with...
they dubbed it.
But with Long Haul Nights, it seems like they also had to wait a while to get everything as well.
It was just finding... They knew it was with someone. It was just finding the right person and asking the right questions. And sometimes it takes longer than you think, of course.
Yeah. So they ended it off with showing 2 random episodes of Ninja Robots.
And that makes you definitely, after watching those two, want to go and buy the Blu-ray, which is coming out
Those were.
in
Is it
January.
possible? Is it possible? Like, there's that cliche. Sometimes it's so bad it's good. I kind of came away feeling that way at times.
And it was interesting because it was done in the 90s. It wasn't by any of the regular places because supposedly the dub was done in Miami. So who knows what was going on, but they were definitely, it was very naturalistic as they said, and it felt like they were, I don't know, like maybe they were doing some things on the fly as well because we saw the dialogue from those 2 episodes and they had done clips from them. Like we had the Shatner-esque pauses and things like that from the first episode, and then we have Joe basically looking at the villains of the week and just saying, "You guys have some fucking problems. You know what? Your parents should have beat the shit out of you when you were kids." And they had things like that, but it continues in those other episodes probably because we saw the second episode and it's like Joe on love advice, and you're just like, "Oh boy, oh boy."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, as they said, this series for the dub looks like it could make an amazing drinking game. And it just was making you laugh so hard because you just didn't know what was going to come out of their mouth next. And it was more of not when they were facing the villain of the week or the story for that day. It was just the interactions between the main cast and stuff like that, where they're on the ship or stuff like that, right?
It was, yeah.
It's like between
Yeah.
Jenny, Mike, and Joe, and I guess the princess.
It's-
and even the first episode had that Zelda thing where it's like, "Please, princess," is like, or something like that. Ugh.
Yeah, it's just, as I said, it could be so worth watching for all the wrong reasons.
And the theme song too. That theme song just gives you 90s flashbacks too. It's like ninja robots, ninja robots.
Please stop it.
Anyway, but it was interesting, yeah, that never was in North America for TV and stuff like that, but it sounds like it was Cartoon Network, and so it ended up, they were going, remember to find it, it was like Australia, South East Asia, and then even Kuwait and stuff like that. So that was a journey to
and
find
the
out
fact
about that,
they
that's
got-
for sure.
Considering how much of an uphill climb it was, or at least they said it was, I guess it was, to get everything but 30 seconds, I'd say that I'm actually really impressed that they were able to pull that off the way they did.
And they were searching for quality tapes and all this thing, so it was definitely
Yeah,
quite the thing. But I think, even though the dub is kind of nuts, I think it is a selling point, and it was probably worth getting it because it probably sells them more copies, especially after watching 2 preview episodes.
That's some that just watching those episodes was great advertising. Okay, I do have one final takeaway though from watching that whole thing, the whole presentation, and I know Kevin's going to say that follow up on this when I say it.
We'll see.
There were a lot of Canadians in the chat, or maybe just
Are you saying about the Q&A section where they said, should we do the Q&A or should we go to the episodes? And they're like, okay, and so they did a half
let's
hour.
do the Q&A, and then went
Canadian distributor, and it's like, well, we talked to Selby, the owner, and stuff like that, but there's nothing to say. And I think,
but the thing is, people kept copy pasting, spamming.
Yeah, like
for like a good
like
10,
all
15
10 of
minutes.
us. Yeah.
Basically, for a good 10, 15 minutes until they acknowledged it. And really, there's nothing new.
Yeah, Selby doesn't give a shit about us.
You think it's come down to that?
I think some of it is like they definitely have had their things that they had distribution issues. Remember before COVID, and then they had to get the eggs in order and stuff like that because I think what was it Musicland or whatever was the big issue, and other distributors had or people had issues with that distributor, and so they had their own warehouse, and they finally have gotten their house in order on the American side. So I guess it's been getting into Amazon.com, right stuff, and I'm not sure what other places, but yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen on our end. I still don't know why they can't get into Amazon.ca, because they used to be able to get stuff there. Remember, Kevin? And that was
I
years
didn't.
ago, 3 years
I
ago or so.
I didn't. I was never aware of this because I would just go through Right Stuff anyway and place my $250 order just so I can get free shipping.
250 US, which converts into
Like 300-ish.
Okay.
And the thing is with Discotek, yeah, they usually give you good deals to begin with on a lot of their series and stuff like that. So it's like usually if you want to get that 250 on Right Stuff, it's like you're probably either ordering other stuff or you're waiting for the Christmas sale, which is probably going on right now.
It's just when I hear that story, it has me thinking about when Comic Den was around and some of the issues with getting stuff during that time. I sort of wish that Terry and Anthony were here. I just want to see what their reaction would be to hearing about all this stuff about Canadian distribution now, all these years later.
And I guess with
Because
some of it too, Mike, when you think about Discotek, is they're still a small company, and when they did start and stuff like that many moons ago, it was just a few titles in between, and now they've ramped up, and then he found those people in fandom who wanted to help him out and get these releases out the door in a quality that's phenomenal, whether it's Justin Savakis, Brady Hartel, Mike Toole, and then they found some other people at Media OCD, which is Justin's company, to help bring these long forgotten titles to market. It used to be maybe one or two titles every so often. It's like 5 titles a month now they're doing, and they're just getting things out the door. So they're going at blistering pace, to say the least. And I think they have so many balls in the air that in this case, for the distribution angle, it would be on the owners and stuff like that. And the guys can only say so much, right? Because they're just representing the owners on social media and on these streams and stuff like that as
yeah,
contractors. And they won't know until it's like as they said, all they can do is ask. And unfortunately, it's the same answer. So.
yeah, most of the time. It's just funny how they constantly make the jokes about finishing major projects and collapsing in fetal positions and crying their eyes out.
Yeah, the last one I guess was Aiko, I want to say. But
I think that's where the joke came from. I think that's where Justin's joke came from.
well, no, the first one they really talked about that was Giant Robo, and Mike loved Giant Robo and was putting everything under the sun into that. They were doing that with memories and stuff like that, and then there were other ones that they were just trying to find things and that they just remember, like you had Cyborg 009, which they just sent all those tapes to Justin. And then remember Moncoli Nights in the stream where they joked, where Justin was saying, now you know how I feel, but it isn't as bad, because they sent all these thumb drives to Selby
Oh
for
yeah,
the
that's
save
right. That
of
was
Moncoli Nights or one of the series and stuff like that. And that wasn't that bad because you just had to put them in the computer and then put them up
I
to
think,
the
that was
to
probably
the
the one where
cloud
he
and stuff
was
like that. It was like
so
what, 50
happy,
thumb
right?
drives or something.
Anyway, but always, as I said, we mentioned always worth the watch just to see the interaction, and then the level of technical detail they'll get into is above any my grasp.
And they're
But it's
doing a
so
lot of work on
fascinating.
some of those old series to make them look better. Like they even talked
Mhm.
in Lupin about that, where they have done a lot of remastering, a lot of things to make colors and all these things look really good. And TMS obviously has noticed this and said, you know what, I think we want your copy if we ever release this again, which they probably might down the road, but later, because they've already released a lot of Lupin on Blu-ray over there in Japan, but
Common
not to the
practice.
quality of Discotek.
Yeah. Anyway, but as I said, a fun watch if you're into the older titles, and it really is a panel and an infomercial, but
Yeah,
it puts them if nothing else in very good standing with those who end up deciding to watch it.
yeah, it's like older and niche titles and stuff like that, or if they're doing a
Mhm.
distribution thing. And some people
And
I know probably didn't get all the titles they were hoping for, but some of them, they just gotta find something on the schedule and stuff like that, whether it's some other Lupin specials, or even I know some people were hoping for the the one they did with Crunchyroll, the Isekai one that I should remember. Now I'm forgetting on.
It's okay.
Well, there's two things
Oh,
that
Wonderful World.
So
What
we
was
should-
it?
Yeah, we should go ahead, Kevin.
Oh,
but we should finish
there were
second.
two things that were repeatedly requested that were not addressed. One was if they would put Kakaishi on home video, because right now it's only streaming with them. And the other
Was it
thing
Tales,
that was more or
only
less
streaming?
neglected was a Symphogear sequel.
And I think was Symphogear. I'm not sure if that was with Crunchyroll too, but I know Tales was streaming only, so maybe, hopefully, that's a good sign. But as you said, sometimes it seems to take a long time, doesn't it?
Well, they did say Symphogear sold very well, so something's tying that up somewhere.
Yeah, sometimes there are these weird things, right? Whether it's contracts or whatever.
There isn't much else for me to add.
Actually, you know what it was? I now remember, Mike. It was Konosuba, the Konosuba movie.
Oh,
So that's what I
Konosuba.
think people were hoping for, since I know they'd helped Crunchyroll release the first two series. So, and it has been a while.
As I said, I this is stuff that I so don't keep up with these days. But anyway, I think we're almost done tonight. Yeah, that was a bit of a tour, kind of a lot to go through this evening. Some heavy stuff. I'm glad we could talk a lot more Discotek though. And it'll be fun when they do their next presentation, probably sometime in the first quarter of 2022.
Fingers crossed we all make it.
Yeah, well, let's be optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Despite, isn't that a good thing? Sometimes it feels like it's in short supply, and we all have our moments. I'm sure we've all had our moments over the past. How long has it been? 21 months now.
I think we're approaching 24.
Well, we will approach 24
at some
2 year mark. We're approaching the 2 year mark.
Yeah, I'd say it's about 21 months.
Oh boy!
But
I mean, look at the
we
bright side.
are allowed to
We're
go to
halfway
theaters
there.
in 2022. Maybe we can all go see Ballet from Osoda.
Is it really
well-
pronounced ballet and not bell?
Yeah,
Is
dude,
it
are
Bell
you
or
kidding me? I
Ballet?
thought it was
I don't
Bell.
know.
I thought it was Bell.
I'm not sure whether it's Bell or Ballet. I was just like, whatever.
If it's
Anyway,
ballet, I'm gonna be disappointed.
Probably is Bell, but I'm just I
Yeah.
pronounced the E when I probably shouldn't have.
so
Are you guys gonna watch the subbed or the dub for that?
I think I would
Most
go
likely in
sub if we went.
Japanese.
it depends on what you well, depends on what you see.
I
Right?
usually prefer to go watch it in Japanese first, and then subsequent rewatches would usually be in English for me.
Pretty good
Okay.
English class.
No, yeah, I saw the trailer dropped in the past 2 weeks, so it looked good.
Okay. Anyway, as I said, pandemic began almost 21 months ago. We began the pandemic series a couple months later. And after all that, it's just hard to believe we went through the rest of 2020, or the second half of 2020. We've gone through next episode we will have at least one more episode in the chamber for 2021, episode 57. Hard to believe it's lasted that long. So just a reminder to you three, and Jeff, who I know will hear this sooner or later, have your like we did last year. We're gonna do a round of final insults for 2021. So have something in mind when we return next week. This will be the final episode we do before Christmas itself. So, and as I said, we have one more episode to do right after that, which we'll do on Boxing Week. Hopefully, when we do that episode, we'll look back on a couple things and try and look ahead to what could happen in 2022. The pandemic has made for some very interesting trends. And I think James and I know will probably point out a couple of things that caught our attention over the last little bit that became known, and we'll look back on a little bit of 2021, of course. But that's pretty much all we have for tonight.
Wait, Mike. How are we not bringing up Bleach and that it's going to be confirmed for October of next year? How could we possibly not bring that up?
Well, what do you want to add? I guess we can bring it up.
I guess the Jump Fiesta did give us today,
Oh, that's
didn't
right.
it?
You mentioned that just before I hit the record button. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So that
all
was
annoying.
Bleach, and then what was it? Chainsaw Man is coming to anime next year, and then they talked more, I guess, about Spy and Family. So it does sound like it's going to be a big year in 2022 for Jump Anime, I guess.
You know, not only is the Chainsaw anime gonna be next year, but the next part of the Chainsaw Man manga is confirmed for next year as well. Oh boy. Oh, and they also confirmed that Mappa will be doing the Hell's Paradise Jigokuraku anime adaptation, so that's gonna be pretty sweet too.
So
'Cause
what were your
pretty
thoughts
good.
on Bleach, since you said you wanted to speak on it?
You know, I think about it now that it actually has a date, and I'm thinking, wow, like I might actually stick around and watch this, even though that last arc is a total shit show, because there's a lot of plot holes that were not resolved. Those last 10 or 15 chapters were rushed. It looks like virtually everybody is coming back cast-wise, with one or two minor exceptions. New director, but some of the other core cast from the past in terms of the production side is coming back. So I saw that new Bleach trailer that they released today. That was pretty sweet. I had a huge rush of nostalgic because they played one of the more iconic Bleach insert songs during battle scenes. It was nice to hear number one again after so long. You know, I would say out of the big three being Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. One Piece is undeniably the best of the three in terms of quality, but Bleach, I would say, is my sentimental favorite. It really hit me in such a way that's a little hard to describe. Like it had such a cool vibe to it. It like that. I know I've talked about this in the past and in past episodes, but that first opening of Bleach is a mood unto itself. Oh man, I think I may actually watch this.
You sound like you're at least looking forward to it.
I think I'm more so looking forward to the discourse because I'm genuinely curious to see if they're gonna retcon some things towards the end.
Okay.
I
That's
guess
what
that'll
I'm
be
curious about.
interesting, yeah, because of how it kind of went out with a whimper on the manga side, how they're going to handle it on the anime side. And it's kind of thing of, it's been so long, right? So in some minds, it's kind of like, Bleach is back, really? So it'll be interesting to see how that does.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited to see how upset some people are gonna be about how it turns out.
Well, we've had our share of that anyway in the last little while. So I think we should have some fascination with it and see how people will try and pick it apart.
Yeah.
As I said, that's sort of the theme of the last number of months.
Oh, and a little bit of an aside. I don't know if you read a lot of Shonen Jump lately, James, but they also confirmed the anime for Ayakashi Triangle, apparently. Because of course that was going to get animated at some point or another.
I'm so not keeping
I
up.
don't.
That's
I
the,
don't keep up as much, but I know some people that let me know these things because some of them all just watch streaming or do whatever. But that's about as far as I go in Jump and stuff like that.
Yeah.
so
It
Mike,
pays the
that's
bills for the rest of us, as they say, for those odd anime series that we love.
so Mike, that's the new series from Kentaro Yabuki, who did Black Cat as well as Two Loveru. But it's more in the vein of Two Loveru.
Those names I do remember.
It's more on the vein of Two Loveru, but it's honestly a lot better than you'd expect it to be,
Okay.
Yeah, no,
given
I heard about that
given how
one.
it
Yeah.
is.
Gotta do the digital. Gotta do the digital. Okay. Anything else? Do we have anything else to mention, or should we just close it off tonight? Finally. Yeah, one of those weeks, I guess. Once again, this is our last episode before Christmas, but we have one more set before the New Year's, so just look forward to that. That's all we have for tonight. First time listening, once again, we want to hear from you. animeroundtable@gmail.com, at animeroundtable, animeroundtable.com. As always, word of mouth is always appreciated, so tell your friends about the show if you think they'll like it. Especially since, aside from the regular episodes, we're probably going to do a couple of streams, a couple of live videos in the very near future. And don't forget, having said all of that, to leave us a review wherever you're seeing this or listening to this, because good reviews may help us so the algorithm can shine on us.
Yes, please validate our existence by giving us a 5-star review wherever it lets you do that.
Throughout the pandemic series, we had been typically doing episodes once every other week, but with the Twitch and YouTube now up and running, that's likely to change, and you'll probably see something again. We're doing episodes on consecutive weeks already, so there might be a little bit more to come. And yeah, we've and seemingly maybe we've reached the we figured out a few of the Facebook issues too. So
And I guess we're entering the video world, right, Mike?
yeah, whether we like it or not, kicking and screaming.
And as I heard from Kevin, I guess me and you needed more drip in our video presence. As the
Yeah,
kids
well,
say it.
I'm sure Kevin will let me know about that after I hit the after I hit the stop button. Anyway, in any event, since we're all there, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitch, check out the Facebook group. It'll probably become a page in the near future, or Twitter and Instagram, so you can be notified whenever we add something new. And also, once again, we'll mention the playlist on Spotify, since we put up music which in a roundabout way comes up on many of the things we talk about here.
A little drip never hurts.
So until next week, when we finish off 2021, good night from Toronto. Eri Kurismasu.